Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed lunch and that you had the chance to make some meaningful connections. I want to say a big thank you for our fantastic sponsor, Swiss Re. They're famous for their delicious food, and I think today's lunch was no exception. Big applause for them, I would say. We're very excited to continue with the next part of the program. We now have a panel discussion coming up around data science for a healthier individual and society. Please help me welcome on stage our amazing panelists. Professor Dr. Cristina Rossi, founder and CEO at B-Race. Katarzyna Wach, Professor of Information Systems at University of Geneva. Sina Rüegger, Associate Director and Senior Principal Data Scientist at Novartis. And Karine Poussin, our amazing moderator. She's the Head of AI and Life Sciences at CSCM.
Good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure today to be among you. And it's an amazing event. I'm glad to see so many ladies in data science. I started data science 25 years ago already, and I see now that the ladies are gaining the terrain, and this is fantastic. So today, it's my pleasure to moderate this panel discussion. Data science holds immense potential to transform health outcome, both on an individual and societal level. And the panel will explore today how data-driven approaches can be leveraged to advance personalized care and also to promote well-being and drive more inclusive innovation. And to discuss the topic of today, so I would like to welcome our fantastic panel here, and I would like to let you introduce all yourself.
Shall I make a start?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm Sina. I'm here because of my expertise in data science in biomedical research and drug development. I have a background in data science, but also genetics and statistics. I have worked in the past as a biostatistician. I did a PhD in statistical genetics, and I've worked in research groups at EPFL and at the University of Helsinki addressing the question, what's the contribution of genetics to diseases or certain health conditions? Currently, I work at Novartis in biomarker development. Biomarker development is important because biomarkers are next to the drugs that are developed to address or to treat diseases. Biomarkers are at the core to show that these drugs work. So a biomarker can be, for example, blood pressure, but it can also be something more complex that is in the blood or that is measured through imaging, for example, brain imaging, as she will later allude to. And I, as a data scientist, I never work in isolation. I always work in an interdisciplinary team. I work with all the data scientists, but I also work with people that know the disease and the patients and the drugs much better than me. So these are mostly medical doctors. So they are often in close contact with the patients, so they know their needs, they know the diseases very well, and also chemists and biologists. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Sina. I will continue. My name is Katarzyna Wach. I'm originally Polish. I started with electrical engineering electronics in Polish Polytechnic. then telecommunication, information systems, human-computer interaction, traveled the world, came back to Geneva, where I'm a professor of information system, and I set up a quality of life technologies lab. I started my research in telemonitoring, health telemonitoring, and then it was called e-health and m-health, and now digital health. And thank you for introducing biomarkers, because right now my current challenge is to design and validate digital biomarkers and digital endpoints of quality of life. My vision is that the body, what always speaks silently is the body, and we can measure the body. And how many of you have a wearable on you right now? At least one, right? So more than half of the audience. I have 3 different wearables myself. I'm not selling anything, I wasn't to say it. With things, Oura Ring and blood pressure. My CSM, thank you very much. I'm testing blood pressure monitor, continuous blood pressure monitor. Talk to me if you want about this. And I'm really happy to say that when I set up a quality of life technologies lab at the beginning, some colleagues contacted me if I'm a philosopher or sociologist or psychologist. I started to collaborate with clinical colleagues, and as I always said, yeah, I'm a computer scientist, and right now it's much more recognized, but also that there's more understanding that quality of life goes in the direction of well-being or happiness. And I really wanted to name my lab Happiness at the back many years ago, right, when I set it up, but I knew that some colleagues in computer science and some person sitting in jury and evaluating me for a professorship may not find it serious enough. So quality of life was this keyword, which is now recognized much more, and I'm looking forward to this discussion, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Cristina. It's great to be here between so many smart people. I come from Italy. My background is physics. I always say I'm a data analyst of the older generation, because when I started, we were doing data analytics with models. So we were challenging models against the data, so fitting models. And now it's completely different, the data analytics that you do still, and also that we do. Still, this was a good way to start a career as an entrepreneur. After many years in the university, I am a professor for radiology, actually. And at the end of 2019, me, together with other 2 crazy guys, decided that it was time to start an own entrepreneurial career. So we created B-Raise, which is a spin-off of the University Hospital of Zurich. And our mission is to preserve women's health with a digital platform which is completely dedicated to breast cancer diagnostics. Since the start, where we were just sitting in our laboratory and thinking, shall we do it, shall we not do it? Now we are present in 7 countries. We have 2 headquarters, one in Switzerland, one in the US. We have 5 products on the market, 2 FDA certifications, and we just closed the second investment round. It was a crazy journey. There were ups and downs during the journey. I'm happy to share the experience with you all together and with the other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say a few words about where I work and about my background. So I have a background in life science. I started by studying more biochemistry, physiology, immunology. And after my PhD, I was reading article on what would be the future. And it was mentioned at that time, bioinformatics and data science was not the word at that time. And so I decided to engage into a Master of Science in bioinformatics and data science. And I did all my career always combining the different disciplines. Now I join an organization that is called CSIM. It's a Swiss Technological Innovation Center, and our main mission is to support industry or academy partners who want to develop technologies, innovative technologies in life science or other advanced technologies that will be tech transfer for real-world applications. So if you are an entrepreneur with ideas, you can come to us and we will help you. So it's my pleasure to moderate this discussion today. And we will cover different topics, 3 different topics actually. We will start by reflecting on how data science can advance personalized medicine, but also prevention, which is extremely important nowadays when we see the cost in healthcare. It will not be sustainable over time, and so we need also to be creative and develop solutions for prevention. But we need also investors to invest in these solutions. The second topic we will cover is lifestyle and quality of life, and we have an expert also here. And the third topic is really how we should innovate or accelerate innovation for healthier individual and society. So I'm going to start the first topic on personalized medicine and prevention, and ask you, can and how could data science contribute to the development of personalized treatment plans, actually?
You want to try?
Do you want?
Yes.
Shall I start?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we are very active in the field of radiology, and in radiology, you may know that the journey of patients that have breast cancer starts. So generally, in many countries in the world, there is an organized screening program that invites periodically women to come for a mammography, and then the mammography can eventually detect the breast cancer. What is well known in medicine, for example, since a long time, is that the mammography examination is not enough, and the frequency of the mammography examination is not the right one for the single woman. So there are women that need supplemental diagnostics besides the mammography, or need a more frequent check of the breast tissue. And this is not provided to most of the women because they are missing human resources to do something like that. A screening program is something which is extremely precious for the population, but is also extremely expensive. And it's difficult in the job market to find people that work with this high specialization for the screening program. So at the end, the medicine is offering a one-size-fits-all solution to all women. Although scientifically we know that this is not the right way. So AI can work in this direction, so can work, for example, in decreasing the burden and the amount of work of reading work in mammography, for example, for the single radiologist, but can also act there where there are critically, so diagnostically critically tasks that still require the interpretation of the image, and automate fully those tasks. So leave people which are specialized doing things that only human can do. And this is a journey in medicine. There are clear reasons why one should go in this direction, but the adoption in the commercial world is still different. I would say that in our experience, probably the breast cancer diagnostic in medicine is the most advanced area of application. So there has been embraced into the clinical routine, while in other aspects it can be used for drug development, for certification of patients, and so on. So I think there is a huge opportunities that we have in AI, and we shouldn't be scared by the possibility of introducing a new technology into healthcare. Absolutely not.
Can I add something
Sure,
to this?
sure,
Also, because you mentioned breast cancer. So from the kind of, because my background is in genetics, so from the genetic lens, there are basically 2 applications for prediction where AI or machine learning models are used. And one of them is polygenic risk prediction. And so this is basically where you say, given the genetic profile of a person, what's their risk of then having a disease maybe later on in life. And And this is extremely attractive because you have to so the genetic markup will not really change over time. So basically you can measure it at one point very early in life, and then you have an answer for what will happen later, and you can already start with prevention. The problem is that this only really works for certain diseases, and for example, certain breast cancer types are some of them, also neurodegenerative, for some neurodegenerative disorders, but it hasn't really been shown to be so clinically relevant for other diseases. So this is an area where if you want to make a difference, this is an area where you can go.
Thank you.
And I will take over and say that the future health is then day by day we contribute to the probability of expressing specific diseases and non-communicable diseases, specifically type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, and COPD cancers. It's day by day behaviors, the physical activity, the nutrition, the sleep, stress, alcohol and tobacco, and other risky behaviors contribute 40 to 60% of our future health state. So what we do in our lab is I love to see the genetics, the imaging, and then the day-to-day behaviors. What's happening right now, we have this medical models in which any of you can find it, cardiovascular, type 2 diabetes, COPD, and get into this little self-reported outcomes of how much activity you have, how much activity you think you have, how well you eat, what's your weight, age. There are non-communicable factors like age and gender and racial aspects and family history, right? So there are the things which do not change. And then there is this self-reported outcomes of nutrition, physical activity, and then you could recalculate your health risk of stroke, and for example, in 10 years. So what we are trying to do from data science and computer science perspective is to reverse engineer it to day-to-day behaviors, which somewhere in the future will accumulate a so-called health debt. So we model so-called health debt, assuming that there are some specific recommended values and behaviors over long term, how far you are from there, and how much you would need to change right now in order to change something in the future. So right now you may change just a bit, and then in the future it can be very huge health benefit. Continuous quality of life, because what we see also that unfortunately we have this tsunami of non-communicable diseases, and then we have where also there's epigenetics. So maybe that's what I'm not an expert in, like the behavior and genetics play a role. And then we are not able to we extend our lifespan, but we do not expand our quality of life. That's right now we're at the stage when we are trying to understand how to manage it the best way. Thank you.
This point is interesting because when we look at the statistics, so on average in Switzerland, the people live until 86 years old, but the health span is 63 years old. That means that 25% of your life you may be in poor condition actually. And so the objective now, I think, in the current development is really to extend this health span, actually, not only lifespan.
Correct. The quality of life in later age. Yes.
Okay. So moving a bit, so we know that in healthcare, in life science now, we are collecting a lot of different data modalities. Molecular, imaging, digital. So maybe I ask you this question. So what are currently the challenge and the opportunity in integrating these different data modalities for personalized medicine?
Yeah, so to illustrate that, I want to invite you to a little thought experiment. So let's say you are the data scientist that is tasked with making a model to predict risk for a certain disease. You've also seen there was the WIT Datathon, the Kaggle competition. So that was kind of investigating ADHD. So that's a neurodevelopmental disease. But you can think of any other disease. So you can do cardiovascular, neurological, anything. So you're tasked of developing such a model, and you're told, here is the URL, you can log in, you have a secure compute environment, you have enough compute, everything is super good, you run your model, you do your predictions. Now, the challenges you may face is that you may not. So where should we start? So first of all, maybe, the different data sets that were measured, they can be, we have already said, like self-reported, so you ask people. So it's basically a questionnaire. How do you feel? How often do you watch TV? How often do you do sports? What have you eaten last week? Then you measure them. You measure maybe the height, you measure the weight, you maybe draw blood, you do maybe some imaging. What else could there be? You give them some variables so you can see how often do they walk. And then, so in an ideal world, you are given this data processed, so you can just join them by whatever identifier you're told you can join them. They are in a format that can be processed by the tools that you favor. And in reality, these kind of different data sets, they come in so different shapes and formats, and it requires already a lot of expertise to prepare them, to QC them. And so usually what you have are experts for each kind of data modality. You have imaging experts, you have experts that do, like bioinformaticians that do prepare the molecular data sets. You have all the experts for all the digital data sets. So this requires a lot of kind of data curation until it's in a shape that you can use them. Another problem is data privacy. So some of the data is so restricted to use that it lives in a separate environment. And so you cannot really take it out from there, so you need to bring everything else in there. There's, for example, a big initiative called UK Biobank. So if you process this kind of data, you are obliged to work in their data environment, which is very good, but it's like an extra burden on you, on extra restriction. One other thing is a really practical one. If you have picked a rare disease, a very rare condition that not a lot of people have, then it's very hard to collect data for this and then to have a good model. So similarly, if you want to make a prediction for a certain population, you need to collect data from these people as well, so to allow for generalizability and so on. Yeah, I stop here, but there are many more.
Yes, I am fully with you with this explanation. I think the most difficult thing is that data are in different containers, and these containers are not connected with each other. And even in a hospital, which should be a point of collection of healthcare data, is extremely difficult to move from one department to the other. So these big containers are even difficult to be connected within the same institution. And I think what I heard is happening in many hospitals in Europe and in US is deciding a time zero for organization of data. So many hospitals understood that this dispersion and this having this data so unstructured is a loss of information, which can be extremely critical. And they decided from time zero to start a single center of collection of data and also a structuring of the data. You mentioned something like the rare disease, and actually this is interesting because I mean, when we talk about the data which are, for example, in the hospitals there, sometimes I think, do people know that this data ages with time? I mean, I cannot use data which were acquired with medical procedures of 40 years ago. The medical procedures have changed. The devices they use for collecting data change it. And maybe they found out that there were data which are biomarkers, which were extremely relevant, which were not sampled even not 5 years ago. So this aging of the data is something which is extremely important in industries where there is a turnover of the technology. The only case in which I would be supportive of having a long-term archive of the data are really the rare disease, because we have so little people, or the cohort of patients are so small that then it makes sense to have this long-term collection of data. But it's interesting, and I think, sorry, just to conclude, I think that the hospitals which are more progressive understood that this is a crazy loss of asset for themselves, so to be monetized, to come back to the business perspective, but also for the single patient to provide a better care.
And I think some of the hospitals, they also, instead of kind of keeping the kind of the old data, what they do is they store the samples. I think there is sample decay. So whenever, for example, in Finland, whenever you have a biopsy, so it can be just anytime you go to the gynecologist, this is stored. There are biobanks, and there's. I'm not a biologist, but there must be sample decay. But for genetic data, this is very relevant to have these kind of samples to, get access to later when the methods are better.
Katharina, you want to add something?
I would like to add something. Going out of the hospital, extramural, in the houses where the life happens. Very important. Your secret sauce will be qualitative research. When you have some data set which comes specifically from behavior, there's something about behavior, there's something about, I'm not talking about blood tests or really like genetics, like some hard data, but I'm talking about the data which has context. And I would like you to think, whenever you collect this kind of data, to even be there where the data is collected, or it's a qualitative data, or it's a quantitative data, meaning you ask the individuals on scale 1 to 5 something, or user experience, or some elements of behavior, right? Or scale from I'm very active, I'm not active. Ask for additional explanation if you can, and get into the heads of individuals who are providing this data. And also be very curious about the context in which has been collected, and the state of the individual. If it's a very sick individual, when we look at the pain, anxiety, depression, then it's really so subjective. I really would like that for me to get one message. If you look at the numbers, and if they come from questionnaires, self-reports, and you still think, wow, this is a quantitative data, I just can do my stats and do my machine learning. Just come back and think, no, actually, it's a subjective data set. Even if it's a lot of numbers, it's still a subjective data set, and it has a context in which it has been collected. So I would really encourage you to go back to the human side of the data. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I propose that we move to the second topic of this discussion, which is lifestyle and quality of life. And the first question would be, how do we define and measure quality of life? So maybe Katharina is our expert here.
How much time do we have? Okay. So when I started my lab 10 years ago, I added technologies, just to be sure that people understand it's about technologies. It exists 172 different ways of quantifying quality of life from perspective of self-reporting. There exist scales, so-called scales, questionnaires. Usually it's self-reported. No, usually there's no. I'm looking at you. There's no blood test. There's no X-ray. There is self-reported physical health, psychological health, social relationships, and environmental. The medical scales, the ones which the regulators like, and that's where I look at my colleagues, are mostly related to physical health, the pain, fatigue, daily mobility, and then maybe anxiety and depression, some of the skills. I think you're aware of this. The regulators, if you have a new drug and you say, I'm improving quality of life, so then the The claim you can make is based on so-called EQ5D or SF36, which are the questionnaires, which are mostly physical health and psychological. When I've seen it, and I say I'm a computer scientist, and also I really want to understand the whole context, I pick up as a basis for my lab research a World Health Organization, a quality of life definition and scale. It's 27 questions, 100 on the full scale, and it has this physical health, psychological health, social interactions, environmental. Everything is connected. Everything changes weights depending on the day, on the context. There is an element of evolving. The quality of life is evolving and changing, and the modeling is not that easy. It's quantitative, qualitative elements. And then you also, most likely, we all know persons who have it all and they're very unhappy and they claim their quality of life is very low. And then we met persons who are very sick and they have excellent quality of life according to their subjective perception. So it's not easy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I think maybe if I can.
Yes, you were measuring,
Is a
right?
question. No. I mean, when you have such a complex task like the one of modeling the elements that affect the quality of life, what is the right way to specialize on one aspect? I don't know. I'm thinking about the nutrition and diet app or the blood pressure, and then each one is specializing on a field, and then you put the stuff together. Or what do you think?
I'm actually right now at the stage when many people say I'm crazy, and I say, yes, that's my name, I'm wacky, my name's Wack, deal with it. I got my professorship now, I will show you I can do it. And many of the elements come back, fortunately or unfortunately, to physical health. So there is a physical functioning, so sleep, physical activity, and then elements of daily functioning, and really getting back to the body. Is the body being taken care of, and can we quantify it, right? But my still vision and my dream, and please join me on this journey, that we can also point out that somebody lives in very rural area, there is no access to transportation, the person walks and then doesn't, and then feels bad, and there is lonely, and then it comes back that somebody called the person, and then they feel better, and they watch something in TV. I love to have all this data and have a quantification and have this particular longitudinal data. Also thinking about quality of life and modeling, as I said, the behavior contributes to our future health and to our quality of life. Then if you have longitudinal data sets about behavior, and we could model it accurately and then have this particular outcome, then I would love to say that we'll be able to do this multidimensional modeling. But unfortunately, once again, answering your question, right now we are all, and also my collaboration with pharma, I'm looking at a colleague, I'm talking to a few pharma, and we go back to physical health, go back to the body, here. Thank you.
And while we are aging, I see that the quality of life may be impacted by the development of disease, because we know that aging is associated with an increased risk of disease. And so having, developing prevention solution, solutions that can be preventative are really important. And for example, in my unit, we are supporting an entrepreneur to develop their AI engine from a drop of blood. They are generating different data modalities, profiling different layers of the system. And we are developing an AI to predict the risk of disease, but before it happens. And I think this is, can be also very powerful, because it empowers people to take measure if they know they have a certain risk, to mitigate by maybe doing a more regular check with their general practitioner, or if they are a risk that is very high, then really, or low, I would say, maybe more on they could change also their life, take some action to change their lifestyle. So
but that's hard. I will just say
increasing the physical activity, nutrition, etc.
We all try it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
We all try it.
Yeah.
Behavior change is hard.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
So how do you? what type of AI assisting proactive system do you foresee in the future that could help to improve quality of life?
You are the expert.
As I say, we are collecting multiple cohorts as longitudinal data sets. And first, so, like we're talking about data science, but like first is descriptive analytics, right? Like where you are standing and how far you are from what would be recommended for the population. And of course, there's also personal thresholds. So descriptive statistics, then kind of diagnostic statistics, and predictive. If we continue like this, and then that's where we map it on the medical models of non-communicable diseases and other diseases, and we work with clinicians, of course. And then we get into generative AI, and we do like, if you continue like this, but if you change something, and then we look into what's the like envelope of no, I don't want to say error, but like envelope of behavior change we can assume in the future, and how do we model this behavior change? And then right now we change this little thing, and then scientifically what's difficult is to understand what's the minimal importance difference. What's the minimal important difference right now, tomorrow, day after, the sleep, the physical activity, the nutrition, which will end up in the best outcome in the future. So we are doing the generative AI and things, and we write our papers, and then I go to our clinicians, and they're like, oh, this is too much, and yeah, can we just come back to like basic regressions or some decision trees were mentioned today, right? And kind of this basic thing, can I just see this basic things that they usually kind of come back to, was all your questions, so kind of descriptive analytics and kind of when they think. And so it's a lot of also, for those of you who work in multiple domains, multiple, with multiple experts, is a lot of turn-taking. Sometimes the things which we need to develop is a very basic thing, very basic model, very basic outcome, something they understand, and then you satisfy your user in a sense, you show them what you can do, and then you go back and do other things and write your great papers and everything, and then you come back and you have a dialogue. It's a dialogue. We need to listen to each other. Yes, but for us, like from scientific perspective, it's generative AI and really thinking about these future scenarios. Another thing which we do, because behavior change is hard. Let's be honest, and that's why in all these apps and everything, and people just take it for 3 months and then they drop it, and the apps and bikini bodies or whatever we hear on all this. So we're looking into the ways of looking into what motivates people right now, where they are right now, what motivates them, and then we model like self-efficacy. Are they in control? Do they feel they can change something? And then like this suggestion, change your behavior, and then we observe, based on the data we collect, we observe if the behavior has been embedded or changed, and if not, we scale down the goal, right? So the little steps. And then also there's, relapses, and then back to square one kind of, and then try to, it's a process. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So going through the last part of our discussion regarding innovation on the topic. So how could we accelerate innovation to advance this topic? And where do you see the most urgent opportunities for innovation, for example, in women health? We know that women health topic is hype, is important, and is taking off. So,
yeah, if I can share my experience, I think for sure the femtech is an underserved industry. So there are millions of applications or millions of unmet needs that are calling for a solution, and the technology is out there to meet those needs. What is missing is really what you are called to do in the next years, to close the gaps between the requirements that are coming from the field, the society, and what is technically possible to meet. So I think that exactly having a new generation of data scientists which is diverse, which is able to feel needs in the society which are different, is a super important starting point, because these requirements do not come to the attention of an innovation laboratory, let's say, or engine. What we also see, of course, at the moment, many innovations in women's health are led by women, because there is a certain affinity in understanding the critical need. Breast cancer maybe is more advanced in this sense, but I'm thinking about obesity, depression, menopause, women's sex sphere, gynecology task, whatever it can come to your mind. It's much more difficult that a male entrepreneur feels an affinity to those topics, at least at the beginning. I think, and then we come into the phase in which we have female entrepreneurs that try to raise funds in a community which is populated mostly by male investors. So you have an uneducated market of investors, and there are some barriers due to the lack of diversity on both sides. So I think this is surely a challenge, something that should be changed in the future, also because it's a huge business opportunity. I mean, female health, femtech, serves a population of people that have now economic power. So women can now spend money. So this is a business opportunity that is left on the table, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think we're gonna open now the questions to the audience. So if you have questions to the panel, so you're welcome.
Yeah, so we actually got many on the app as well. So maybe we can take one from the app and then another one from the live audience. I mean, this is also live. But yeah, it's certainly a very interesting topic, and I think we could cover an entire event day. One interesting question is, how do you handle in your companies or functions the fact that in healthcare, often man is used as a synonym for human, but women physiology is quite different from men's?
Collecting.
I'm focusing on women, so I don't have to bias. You have it.
I mean, at my company, I think historically, I think clinical trials have been done mostly on men, like something that was kind of constant, But I think now it's mostly balanced, and they are trying to find, really like a balance that it represents really how many female or male have this in the disease in the population. And we have this, I think this has arrived at the companies, I think by now, at least.
It's really good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have one question in the back, an important one.
Hi, sorry. I thought I'd ask in person because it might be a bit long, but we talk a lot about opportunities and the power for the good of all this data in health. But I just thought maybe it would be also interesting to talk a bit about the risks as well. And what we're seeing a lot today is that all this data science, this AI, is a big inequality multiplier. And I think especially in health, we think if in the future we'll be able to predict so deterministically everything about everyone, what does that imply for inequalities? Will I be able to get insurance if I have a DNA for breast cancer? Yeah. Will I be able to find a partner, for example? Will Tinder ask me for my DNA or predict from my face how fertile or cancer prone I am? And then there will be some kind of assortative matching. So maybe I don't think there's an answer, but maybe you want to discuss that. I think it's interesting, and a lot about data security. And we saw 23andMe now going bankrupt, and where is this data going to end up, and what is it going to be used for? So maybe it's an interesting topic to touch on the panel. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a genetics
element. Yeah, I have so many things to say about it. Actually, I was thinking more about the risks. I was thinking more about You know, so 90% of the genetic data used in research around the world is from Europe or from Caucasian, as we say in genetics. And only a fraction is from Asian, African, or Hispanic populations. And the danger there is that basically if you don't fall into the European bucket, the genetic predictions are really rubbish. It's basically, yeah, makes no sense. You can't use it. So this is, from my perspective, a disadvantage. The thing that you mentioned with, you know, maybe governments wanting to know what your genetic predisposition is, I hope this would never happen in Switzerland. And with 23andMe going bankrupt, I hope that data stays locked somewhere. If you want to use genetic data, maybe just for a project or something, let's say you're getting into data science, you want to know, like, oh, can I build a polygenic risk scores myself? There's very little genetic data freely available, and that's because genetic data is so you can identify people basically based on genetic data. So you always, in a professional setting, you always make sure that the data is securely locked, and you sometimes anonymize it or pseudo-anonymize it. So if there is a data breach, the individuals can't be identified. And you tell that basically also to the patients that give you the data. You tell them, we take care of your data. And I hope 23andMe does this as well. Yeah.
Even research infrastructural hours for collection of the data from individuals' wearables and self-reports has been certified by State of Geneva. It took a year to go through the audit for my software. So, thank you.
I may add also something on this topic. I don't know if we still have time.
Maybe to wrap it up.
Yeah, okay, then maybe in the coffee break.
Well, yeah, as I said, we could go on for much longer. It was really interesting, very insightful. Thank you so much to all the panelists and to Karim for moderating it. And yeah, thanks for sharing your experience. Big round of applause.